All right, and we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. I am James Craig, an independently published author of many things at this point. But today is the monthly book club. Last month in June, we read John Carter by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Because apparently I just keep choosing pulp stories for the most part. And because of the holiday, things got screwed up. It's a weird time, whatever. But Dino has come on once again to talk about
Yay.
this wonderful adventure book that has been adapted to film twice, and neither of which time was particularly good. And I think there's a couple reasons that it's never been adapted well. Most notably, he's a Virginian gentleman right after the Civil War who loses everything because he fought for the Confederates and goes out to Arizona to go gold prospecting and get his fortune back. And at that time, that means he was fighting a lot of Native Americans and has some random encounters with them before he gets, transported to Mars, otherwise known as Barsoom, wherein he dominates the local culture, wins several wars, steals the heart of the loveliest woman on the planet, installs himself as king of one of the greatest city-states, essentially, and then saves everyone's lives before failing a quick-time event and ending up back on Earth. And that's just the first book. There are 5, I believe, at least the collection I bought off Amazon is 5 of these books. They're not super long, but the pacing is incredible compared to modern standards. No, you read the first 3.
Right.
Is that a true statement after Princess of Mars?
Oh yeah. Again, it has I see with like a lot more modern stories, like the whole first Princess of Mars could be some writers, they'd go like Tolkien length. I could see them or longer just with that one, let alone like the first 3. That could be just like an entire trilogy itself. It is actually referred to as a bit of a trilogy, considering those first 3 are specifically about John Carter. Some of the others are.
They could have made an entire book about him, impersonating a Navy officer in the other city state to get into the palace.
Right.
No, that was like 10 pages.
Right.
There are some design decisions in the storytelling that enable that. For example, most of the wars are basically like Bronze Age level tactics, which are fine if your opponents are using Bronze Age level tactics of get more men, crash your men into them, be better, win, right? That's basically how the wars go down.
I mean,
wars, it's Barsoom is a fallen civilization, so it checks out. It's fine.
Yeah, it is a dying planet, and multiple references are made throughout that. It's a planet that was once full of life, now.
Yeah, so getting into John Carter, I thought that the science fiction aspect to it would be a lot more half-assed than it actually was. Definitely some fake science going on. Oh, yeah. We're going to use the 8th ray of light to distill air pressure for the planet. We're going to use the 9th ray of light to repel gravity.
Yeah. But like other things I do know is like, okay, Mars has lesser gravity. The whole its days and its orbit around the years kind of like match Mars's actual. So there is some level of that Edgar Rice Burroughs did pay attention.
Was this set up so that it's the lineup of Earth and Mars is when he transfers? It's like 5 years in Princess of Mars, and I think the close approach to Mars is every 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's like 10 years. Like he was on Mars for 10 years.
All right, we're doing this live. I'm checking.
And then he gets sent back to Earth, and he's there for 10 years, and he goes back after that.
Interesting. It could still be it, but Earth and Mars align every 2 years and 2 months. So it might
Mm.
line up, and it's just that it doesn't always happen or something.
Yeah,
Or
I think
he was going for. Maybe just like, "Hey, the story's over, he's back on Earth."
yeah. Granted, I think uh, doing some other research into the series, because Edgar Rice Burroughs supposedly is actually the nephew of uh, Jean Carter.
Supposedly, you mean.
Supposedly, yeah. You see, even in the forward I
Yeah,
read,
so there's a framing device where Princess of Mars is written by the author, who is himself the nephew of John Carter, who recovers these diaries and documents and compiles them into a book posthumously. But by the end of the first book, it's obvious that he's not dead. He's just on Mars having more adventures, which I think is actually a pretty clever framing device.
yeah,
Because if it was actually just the memoirs of a dead man, you know that there's a bad ending, essentially.
right.
Is that how God of Mars and Warlord of Mars sets up as well? Is it's more memoirs, and it's each book is a different trip to Barsoom?
Um, Warlord and Gods Mars actually, well, it's actually Gods, then Warlords, but it actually like flows between each other. There's actually just a 1 year gap between the two.
Does he stay on Barsoom during that 1 year gap?
Yeah, he stays on Barsoom.
All right, I guess that is the natural plot evolution of he didn't know he could get yoinked back to Earth, and then he would presumably take action to not have that happen again because his life is better as the God King Jumpman of Mars.
Yeah, but apparently there are like other stories with other characters. I think one's of his son, um, and then some other is of a World War I soldier who gets sent to Barsoom that later becomes friends with John Carter, and that is supposedly John Carter telling this tale to Edgar Rice Burroughs.
So I think before anything with Mars even comes up, he establishes that he doesn't age, and he has no idea why. That's just like stated.
He's an immortal.
So yeah, basically.
That's the reason why
Any more
John Carter's
modern
unkillable.
book,
They have to get his head.
in a more modern book, I would assume that that is a dedicated promise to explore this, a full world where there are other immortals and it matters, and maybe Highlander it or something, or a secret society. You can't just throw in something like that and
No.
not be critical to the plot. However, I don't know if Edgar Rice Burroughs cared about that. I think he just kind of declared it because it was cool, and it helped him write more and more stories.
Well, apparently, and you find this in the other two, that immortality is a lot more common on Mars, and that gets into the more of the plot of Gods of Mars and world, especially Gods of Mars, dealing with the whole idea of immortality. That John Carter is actually not the only one who's immortal. In fact, almost everyone on Mars is technically immortal.
That's interesting. Well, so that is the reason I should keep reading, and not just because I'm a completionist that doesn't like having unread books on the shelves, even when they're like terrible books. This is not terrible, by the way. I do actually recommend John Carter, although I think, in my opinion, probably better as an audiobook. I think I'm willing to bet Audible has a dramatized version of this that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I didn't even check it out. I just bought this off Amazon and then regretted the decision, to be honest.
I mean, I read it off the Internet Archive for free. So.
Right, because it is public domain.
Right. The books are, the name Jean Carter is still trademarked by the Rice Burroughs estate for some reason.
Dude, trademark law is so stupid.
Yeah. But.
By the way, I should have said hello to John Douglas in the chat. Shilling time, by the way. If you want to join the book club, the link is in the description. This month for July, I've chosen actually a nonfiction book. So I've chosen The Longest Day, the very famous story about Operation Overlord, otherwise known as D-Day. I'm about 5 hours into the audiobook, and it's really good so far. Historical, it is good research material. It's well written. I recommend it so far. I'm probably going to have it done well before the stream for that.
Yeah, my copy is on the way. Mailman's being slow.
Yeah, that one you can't get off the Internet Archive. I mean, you probably could, but it would be illegal. Nobody does anything illegal on the internet, though.
Right.
By the way, NordVPN here. All right, back to John Carter. You read Solomon Kane, right?
Yes.
All right, let's do a bit of compare and contrast. I think you can compare them relatively fairly because neither of them are magical, really, or they're at least at a similar level of magic. They're mostly swordsmen who sometimes have guns, show up to and find problems. They slay monsters, defeat enemies, and do righteous acts and such. Right. It has to be the exact same demographic appeal, I would say.
It probably was. I mean, Edgar Rice Burroughs might have actually influenced Robert E. Howard a little bit because Edgar Rice Burroughs was like early 1910s.
I'm checking it out. So, according to the AI of yeah, Google a question, get an AI overview of a simple answer that Wikipedia is giving, and guess what? They contradict. AI says 1911. Wikipedia says 1912.
Yeah,
So that's Princess of Mars.
Right, which they were like originally published in magazines and then later compiled and sold as a book.
Okay, so yeah, Robert E. Howard is writing in the 30s. So it's fair to say John Carter is a direct predecessor earlier in the pulp scene.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because on a story level, I think I actually found more satisfaction from Princess of Mars, even if I probably think Robert E. Howard is better stylistically. I'm a big Conan fan, if I haven't made that obvious.
Yeah, I could see where you're coming from. I mean, John Carter Mars is just a massive influence, even for like science fiction, because of you may not even like most people don't even recognize its roots, but apparently it has its roots with Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon's roots are John Carter of Mars, which
my ignorance of Flash Gordon is starting to become a thorn in my side because I have never consumed anything Flash Gordon.
I haven't either, but I do know Flash Gordon is very important to a little IP known as Star Wars.
Yeah, the urban legend is that Lucas wanted to do Flash Gordon and couldn't secure the rights, so he just filed off the copyright and made his own thing.
Right. But I mean, that actually would make a lot of sense. And then they would later do a Flash Gordon movie with Queen as the soundtrack. Because of, hey, they could have been Flash Gordon.
So I'll probably choose some Flash Gordon stuff for the book club later this year, maybe. I need to mix things up from just constantly choosing 100-year-old pulp novels, though. Which is why I'm hoping that people are going to enjoy The Longest Day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it a read. Apparently, it was also a movie in the 60s that the writer of the book also wrote the script for. And it starred like John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Yick.
Yep, pretty famous movie.
Sean Connery as well. Apparently, there's like a whole bunch of big name actors involved.
Back in the day when Hollywood actually used books as the foundation of their movies instead of just trying to wear them like skin suits.
Yeah.
So, back to John Carter here. In book one, it introduces the idea that the reason that they have atmosphere is because they have these it's one atmosphere generating plant that he stumbles into momentarily as part of his wandering adventure.
Right.
Which is not a robust system by any means, as shown by the fact that the dude had a heart attack and died, and almost the entire planet suffocated.
1 point of failure.
So, world builders, if you are designing a planet critical system, you should have like 3 backups for it. Like, that's just the rule of thumb there. Especially when nobody knows how to get through the blast doors except Mr. God King John Carter. But there is a scientific issue that might just be 100-year-old ignorance. Mars is colder than Antarctica.
Yeah, that's probably would have been scientific ignorance, because apparently there was a theory back then that there apparently was a civilization on Mars based off of like some of the observations of its geography, but now since we have actual rovers landing on there, like no, there was no geography.
Yes,
there.
we now have photographic and video evidence that there are not Tharks and green-skinned clans of barbarians.
Yeah, there are no Eartherns, there are no the Black Martians, there are no Yellow Martians, there are no
sky ships floating around.
Right.
Which, by the way, John Carter discovers that they have sky ships. He goes, cool. Let me join the Navy so I can get access to the palace. And within an hour, he is like a world-class speed racer on his little cockpit.
I mean, I've heard about this being sort of like the proto isekai, or like the first isekai.
Oh yeah, it's definitely an isekai.
Right. Which, okay, yeah, I can see.
Missing his stats.
Yeah, I can see where they're getting it from. Then of course it does it much better.
There's some good isekai. So
yeah.
I personally think isekai is best when it's done for comedy. I would actually struggle to name an isekai that doesn't get a lot of its appeal from just being genuinely funny. John Carter is not a humorous novel. It is actually a shockingly serious adventure story.
Right.
God, what was my train of thought? I was about to say something before that. Oh, right. He's a Mary Sue, as most people will call him.
Yeah.
He does not fall under Mary Sue by my definition, which is why I stick to my definition. If you pulled up a checklist of like red flags for somebody being a Mary Sue, he's almost a one-of-a-kind immortal. He can jump he breaks the world's rules because he can jump 50 feet in the air. He's an expert swordsman, expert rifleman, expert pod racer. He can tame animals. He befriends vicious dogs. He reforms an entire barbarian clan and brokers peace between them and their mortal enemies. And that's just book one, and I'm missing things. Right. He's the only man on Barsoom that can hear other people's thoughts, but they can't hear his thoughts. Every single thing I'm naming right now will get him labeled a Mary Sue.
Right. But
he's likable.
He's likable, and also there's like a reasonable level of
challenge. He typically doesn't like trivialize fights usually, except for a few times where he just sucker punches chieftains and one-shots them. Yeah. Like he's goddamn Saitama.
Well, I think like another case is like, okay, well, he's from Earth. So like, oh, well, Earth has different gravity. That's the reason why he's able to jump so high. I was like, oh, he was a soldier on Earth. And well, actually an officer. So he would be a much better fighter, and as well as like him knowing the fighting styles of Earth that the people of Mars don't really know how to fight like an Earthman would. That kind of, I can see like how you would have that.
All right, so Aristides in the chat here is saying, "Oh, he's super strong because of the difference in gravity," which is what you were saying.
Right.
Yeah, he would have muscle atrophy after living on Barsoom for a while.
Yeah, he would.
You don't just get to keep your super giga muscles. That's not how that works.
Yeah, but in which his son actually does inherit that power as well.
Okay, that just brings like he's a Mary Sue by like objective metrics. I just stand by the reason nobody's complaining about John Carter being a Mary Sue is he's likable, he's heroic, he's no nonsense, and he does what has to be done for good reasons, for good aims. He has vicious enemies to rightfully dispatch, and so on. And it's really not even his own actions are not about him, which I think might actually be pretty critical to why he's likable, because he just kind of shows up and does some stuff, but it's to save the princess.
Right,
It's
and
to
even
thwart a war between good people, and so on.
yeah, and even
Right?
in the other books, a lot of his motivation is to get back to Deja, or to that. So, like, that's his primary motivation, even through the other two that I've read.
So that really overcomes a lot of the things that people complain about, because it comes down to the relationship the reader has with the hero. Even if he is, the best out there. Okay, so he's up against like unreasonable challenges at the same time, right?
Right, because again, he's coming up against like entire nations. Some of them are taller, much more advanced, like weaponry than just him with his longsword, dire stuff like that. So,
All right, Aristides in the chat there. I was reading the comments through StreamYard, which has a 30-second delay. So I made my comment, which then got 30-second delayed to you before your second post showed up. Sorry about that. By the way, if you haven't already, you should like and subscribe so I can hit 1,000. I can get monetized, and then I can be even more annoying with my shilling, except hopefully not. Yeah, I probably will turn on advertisements to my videos when I can. I know a lot of people just disable them because they're not there to annoy people with advertisements, especially now that
the
YouTube
thing
is
is,
trying to
YouTube just
market
even inserts them, even if you are not monetized or anything like that. So, like, so even if you weren't to turn on the ads, the viewers will still be annoyed by them. I mean, this is YouTube after all.
There's kind of an argument for I shouldn't do that, because I'm not here to make money off YouTube, although it helps obviously when those checks start coming in. I'm here to sell books. My goal is to make full-time living through my novels, which you can find the link in the description. So there's an argument I should be favoring growth strategies on YouTube to reach a bigger marketing range. And things like expanding the book club, link in the description, helps with that theoretically. Whatever. So, John Carter, give me the short version of God of Mars, would you?
Okay, God's Mars. He comes back to Mars, and he's at a completely different location, fighting off threats, and he runs back into Tars Tarkas, and they realize, oh wait, this is the place. Basically, this is the river Styx. What's going?
That was set up. Man, do I actually have to like immediately read this?
Possibly.
So yeah, there's some cool cultural stuff going on in Barsoom where the dead get sent down like one specific river.
No, like when you feel like it is your time, you go down onto this journey to this place to where the Holy Therns and this goddess, Isis, I believe, reside, and to go to them, and that's where John Carter discovers the truth with like the Therns and with the Black Martians
Okay. So I've only gotten a taste of John Carter by only reading Princess of Mars.
Yes.
Uh, how rigorous does the sci-fi come together? Because he kind of cheats in a way I envy, where he goes, "Oh, they're using some kind of dangerous element. I think it's radium because that's what we're discovering on Earth, but I don't really know for like these, exploding bullets that blow potholes in the desert when the sun hits them, which is cool for the record. There's a lot
Right.
of things in this book that are just flat out cool, and there's a reason other people have imitated and stolen.
I think it falls more towards like the rule cool. There is like some little like science element towards it, but then again, you have to take into account like what would be Edgar Rice Burroughs like background of this, what was the information available, what were the common prevailing theories, like may not even just be scientific, but at the time. So, but yeah, I'd say it leans more towards like rule cool than like a harder sci-fi like you would see like Heinlein.
Okay. I did not get any feeling that he was making any kind of metaphorical argument. This seemed to just be pure adventure for heroic's sake.
Yeah, it was. I know some people, when it comes to his Tarzan work, try to claim like, okay, there's like a racial motivation behind it because he was a eugenicist. Um, Edgar Rice Burroughs was, but I mean, I haven't read any of the Tarzan books, so
I mean,
I'm willing. I
in
rather make my
defense of
own
Edgar Rice
conclusion of that.
Burroughs, as dangerous as it sounds, like that was a normal belief in 1910.
Right, that would have been fairly normal back then
Um,
for him.
yeah, back in our more naive days of what governments could do.
Right.
Anyways, I have not read Tarzan. Have you?
No, my knowledge of Tarzan is only through like the Disney movie and maybe
Same,
other cultural osmosis.
dude. It is such a shame how much of a dereliction of duty Disney has fallen into.
Oh man.
I I think it was this morning I was watching a YouTuber talk about the fact that Hololive is now having their talents sing at ball games.
Yeah, I've been seeing like memes about that or people talking about that on some servers I'm in.
He made some good points because he was just like, there is nothing inappropriate. It's completely wholesome. It's the cute shark girl singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Completely family friendly. This is Americana, but the problem is Hololive's a Japanese company,
Right.
and it's not that that America should be xenophobic. It's that it should be Mickey Mouse singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Right. You know, it should be uh, like Mickey Mouse, maybe Warner character or something like that, like Bugs Bunny.
Um,
But
a
yeah,
lot of those old ones have just been abandoned or ruined. Like Disney's John Carter was not good. Everyone looks back on the John Carter movie as a bizarre flop. Although I'm going to take a guess and say that if you went back and watched it, it would probably be better than the average movie coming out today.
oh yeah, it's. I mean, it's a far better like adaptation wise. It's far. It's not like okay, Disney's uh, Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. It's not like Peter Jackson, um, Lord of the Rings trilogy. But it's not like Paul Verhoeven Starship Troopers. It's not that.
I don't want to derail this stream into talking about Hololive because I'm basically just a clip watcher. Um,
I
Hololive's dominance is absurd. The amount of poaching that Yagu has pulled off. I don't know who Suisei is though. That I'm going to guess that is Gura's actual name. Or so you want to fill me in on that? But yeah, so we have comic books nowadays. Um,
mhm.
they kind of fell up their own ass, I think is the correct way to describe it. Because Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Iron Man started them down that path of kind of irreverent and smug about how he played his character, but like that's Iron Man in most iterations, as I understand it. And I think it really went downhill because of the success of Guardians of the Galaxy. And now everything since then has tried to be millennial humor to your Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. There's like a video I saw. It was like millennial writing. I forgot what the channel's name was, but the title was like, okay, but it like goes through like just like the entire tropes. Like they can't write anything else. It's almost like as if they can't. There's like a specific way they talk. There's like certain things that they talk about.
I think right now Hollywood is the normal take from YouTubers is that Hollywood is just propagandists and they don't care that they're losing money. And I think that's wrong. I think that the people at Disney are actually desperate to make money, which is why they keep trying to revamp sequels and reboots and such. That's why we're getting Gladiator 2. Is I think they're actually desperate for money. And Guardians of the Galaxy used a cast of characters. They kind of cherry picked, my understanding, their preferred members of Guardians of the Galaxy because over the decades it's changed a bunch. And they made a good movie. I really liked Guardians 1. And because that was successful, I think the decision makers went, do that again. Do that again. Make us that money. We need another $1 billion movie. That worked. Do it again. And it's also probably easier to edit those kinds of stupid movies.
I think it was the channel I did mention was Shred Nerd. I think I saw
that video. That one went really viral.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I've never been accused of millennial writing myself. I'm more millennial than Edgar Rice Burroughs, though, and that does make me question some of my own style at times.
I'm like, I don't really just care about like what era it is of my style is. I just more so just care about just putting out what I like.
Yeah, that's kind of how cultural zeitgeists happen. Is creators are going to make what they want to make usually, and we're all going to be influenced by what we consume, whether we want it or not. Which is one of the reasons I picked these older books that are more successful and influential, and I can tease apart the genealogy of our stories.
Yeah, and like many times that you can like see like like modern day pop culture or like somewhat you can see like the roots. Like John Carter of Mars, was the father of like Flash Gordon, which heavily influenced like Superman.
By the way, that's coming to public domain soon. We're a few years out.
Yeah, like Superman, Dune, Star Wars. So, like, you could trace its roots back to this. Like, this was the grandfather of all this kind of stuff. Kind of like if you want to like make your own, maybe look to what like George Lucas was pulling from, and maybe look from what what the stuff that he was pulling from, what they were pulling from.
So the thing is that I don't actually know what was written before John Carter. I don't think I've ever heard somebody say what John Carter's influences were or was influenced by.
I do doing like the most like basic Wikipedia research on Edgar Rice Burroughs. Apparently his thing of like John Carter of Mars was just him like reading like the pulps of the day and him going, well, this is crap. I can write better. And so,
hey, that's never happened before. That's definitely not happening right now.
Like I can write better, and so he went and did it. And I think some of it was influenced by his own experience because he was involved in the various like conflicts with the various Indian nations in the late 1800s. which people cite, okay, this might be like a bit of a, like some of the influence that with the Green Martians were from like the various, I think like Geronimo.
There's definitely some influence from, well, how to say this, America's Conquest West.
Yeah, the various conflicts between them.
Okay, so I just went to ChatGPT. And I don't use it very often, so I still have 3.5 at the moment. I didn't get downgraded. Which, by the way, if you don't know, if you use it rarely, you get the most up-to-date ChatGPT. But the more tokens you pull, they kind of downgrade you. I asked, what were the primary influences of Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter series? And it says, was influenced by several key sources, both literary and personal. 1. Pulp fiction. Burroughs was writing during the pulp fiction era, where stories of adventure, heroism, and exploration were popular. This influenced the tone and style of the John Carter series, which is characterized by its fast-paced action and imaginative settings. That has to be an error of the AI, because John Carter is so early in the pulp fiction series, in the pulp fiction era. Yeah, like, it's correct that he was writing pulp. This is definitely a pulp.
Yeah, story. He was, and there were pulps before him, and it was because he read them and he's like, "Oh, this is crap. I can do better." And
2, science fiction and fantasy. Burroughs drew inspirations from the speculative fiction of his time, blending elements of science fiction with its space travel and otherworldly landscapes, and fantasy, featuring exotic cultures, ancient civilizations, and heroic quests. But what was written in 1900? Yeah, Western. Burroughs is also influenced by Western literature and themes, particularly in the portrayal of frontier-like settings and characters who embody rugged individualism and a sense of honor. Mythology and adventure tales. Burroughs borrowed motifs and themes from classical mythology, such as heroic journeys and encounters with strange beings. Okay, sure. Who hasn't been influenced by mythology?
I mean, there's a reason why, like, Western literature has its roots with Odyssey. Is considered like, okay, here's the difference between East and West. It's Odyssey and Journey to the West. Those are like the two stories that, when you compare East and West, that are used.
Yeah, I gotta read Journey to the West, because even though I hear it's like actually abysmal.
I don't think
my
knowledge of it came from Dinosaur King. Came from the Dinosaur King. My knowledge of Journey to the West came from the Dinosaur King anime.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that the knockoffs and direct inspirations are simply more enjoyable. Like Dragon Ball is Journey to the West for a while. Like until he becomes an adult, it's basically he's literally the Monkey King.
Yeah.
All right. 5 personal experiences. Burroughs' own life experiences, including his time in the military and his fascination with different cultures and landscapes, provide him with material and inspiration for creating the diverse worlds and characters in the John Carter series. That is a remarkably common theme among people we consider the best writers, is that they served in the military.
Yeah. Or they were like adventurers and such like that. The author, the creator of Doc Savage, which basically was a major influence for Indiana Jones, he was an actual adventurer, a real life adventurer. So
now, everyone has heard the stat that if you go to college, you'll make on average like $20,000 more per year on average, and that's an outdated statistic nowadays. Yeah. And the reason that was happening was because in the 1950s through 90s, you actually had to be smart to go to college, and if you were smart, you were likely to make more money anyways.
Right.
So, do you think that's a case of 100 years ago? It was just a better cut of people that were like the higher cut of people joined the military.
Well, you see that you also had like drafts. You had things like drafts going on. You actually have like a lot more conflicts going on. I mean, in the case of Edgar Rice Burroughs, it was the various conflicts with the Indian nations. If you look at J.R.R. Tolkien, it was World War One. Same thing with C.S. Lewis. He was also a World War One vet. You look at Robert Heinlein. He was a naval officer as well as a Naval Academy graduate.
Well, with World War One, that's actually like it. There were so many people, so many like able-bodied, fit men got drafted that it's almost weirder to not be a veteran in that scenario.
Yeah.
I don't think the proportion of military service was that high prior to World War One. Like that's why so many people died, was because it was just this industrial meat grinder.
I mean, as well as like there was also like a different attitude towards like the military as such. I mean, whereas like, now these days it's
Post Vietnam,
like, right? But even then, like only about like 1% enlist of the U.S. population. Which I mean, that's only like, granted, that is 3 million, which is still like a nothing to sneeze at, but it's still. We've been gradually downsizing even after the Cold War. And then who knows? And granted, there's been like a recruiting crisis and such with the Afghan withdrawal. That is
okay. Number 6, scientific and technological advances. The burgeoning understanding of science and technology during Burroughs' time, late 19th and early 20th centuries, influenced the speculative aspects of his fiction. Overall, Edgar Rice Burroughs synthesized these influences. Okay, screw you, ChatGPT. All right, I just asked, okay, but can you name specific books he read? Jules Verne? How old is Jules Verne? Ooh, okay. Verne's older. Verne died in 1905. So Edgar Rice Burroughs was influenced by a variety of books and literary genres that shaped his writing style and thematic interests. While he did not explicitly list all of his influences, several types of literature were likely influential. Adventure and exploration fiction. Burroughs was known to have read and admired adventure novels, including works by H. Rider Haggard, e.g. King Solomon's Mines. I've never heard of that.
King Solomon's, that has to do with, okay. Like I know like the mythology and such that it's dealing with, but
and Jules Verne, e.g., Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Okay.
Science fiction. The speculative and futuristic elements in his writing suggest he was familiar with early science fiction literature, possibly including works by H. How old is H.G. Wells?
Oh, he is very old. He was 1800s.
He must have lived a long life. Wells died in 1946. Whoa. Okay. War of the Worlds was written between 1895 and 1897, and was serialized in Pearson's Magazine in the UK and Cosmopolitan Magazine in the US in 1897. So I actually backed that Wraithmark Kickstarter through Daniel Green, was the big show for it, for the deluxe edition of War of the Worlds. And that was before I found out there was apologia in the front matter. I literally might cut that out of my copy. I did not know it was that old. I knew it was old, but I thought it was like 1920 old.
Apparently not.
Yeah, spoiler alert for the book club later this year. When I get that copy, that's going to the book club. Because I've actually never read War of the Worlds. I've watched the movies. They were good movies. Everyone likes a nice tripod robot. Like almost every science fiction series has tripod robots because of War of the Worlds.
I mean, apparently the Martians having 4 arms and 2 legs that I've seen comes from Edgar Rice Burroughs.
I actually forgot that the grain skin Martians have 4 arms.
Yeah, as well.
That was part of my issue with Princess of Mars is the first, like, until Deja Thoris shows up, it's actually really abysmally slow. Because he's basically just like observing these weird things and just living his life.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So.
Also, Deja lays eggs.
Oh, yeah. No, that's weird. It's the mermaid problem, though. Do you want a mermaid with human half on top or on bottom, bro? Classical literature, Burroughs is likely familiar with classical myths and epics, which influence his creation of heroic characters and epic journeys as novels. Westerns, the influence of Western literature can be seen in themes of frontier exploration, rugged individualism, and clashes between different cultures that appear in his works. While Burroughs does not directly name specific books that influenced the John Carter series in his writing, the thematic elements and narrative style of his novels suggest a synthesis of these genres and literary traditions. His own experiences and imagination played a significant role in shaping a distinctive blend of adventure, romance, and speculative fiction that characterizes his works. So, I have a book over here that has been sitting on my shelf unread, nagging me. And it's a huge book.
I don't know how to keep chat entertained while you're gone.
What'd you say?
I don't know how to keep chat entertained while you are gone.
Oh, I wasn't gone. So I bought this off Amazon used because I don't think it's in print anymore. But I bought the complete illustrated works of Edgar Allan Poe. And I have not even cracked it open. And I feel bad about that. Because Poe has to be one of the actual biggest literary influences that people know, but kind of don't know.
Yeah. Probably even like Shakespeare as well. Granted, like Shakespeare's just been just so massive for the Western canon that.
Yeah. Honestly, I might choose some Shakespeare plays later for the book club because I'm planning to write a standalone novel for my fantasy series that, as a stylistic challenge, I want to write all the dialogue as couplets and like in Shakespearean pentameter and such. And give it that kind of feel, but still still do the exposition the way I normally do because I don't want to hate myself. I think that'll be really cool. And in order to write that book, I'm going to have to reread a bunch of Shakespeare. And there's nothing wrong with rereading Shakespeare. He's good. Yeah. By the way, Jersey, nothing's stopping you from reading it on your own time. I always say that if you don't like the current book for the month, it's a great time to read one of my books, but you can always just go back. I'm here to encourage more people to read by giving a forum for people to be reading the same book as each other. I think that's actually a big struggle people have is there is an innate desire of humans to have a touchstone where, like, the reason books go crazy viral and people will go read, say, Fourth Wing isn't just the quality of the book itself. It's because other people are reading it. And that's why I'm trying to do the book club, to help give people an excuse. Looks like Aristides is just naming good Edgar Allan Poe stories, I would assume. Oh, apparently that's Stoker. Yeah, that's another gap in my knowledge. I'm a 30-year-old man who hasn't read much Poe, even though I call myself a writer. Although that hasn't stopped anyone else.
You've probably done a lot more reading than your average Disney writer.
The writers at Disney probably don't read.
Yeah.
Like, I would guess that a large proportion of them think reading would make them worse at screenwriting.
Which I don't get how. In fact, from my own understanding, it makes you better.
Dude, there are other people that are just like, a lot of the writers take pride in the fact that they don't research the characters they're writing because they were hired to make a new spin on insert superhero here. Which I guess makes sense from like a managerial perspective, where you want to be giving people something new. Because if you name any particular arc, some people are going to like it, some people aren't.
Right.
You could have a bad one that nobody really likes it, but even the best ones, you're going to drive people off of like, oh, I don't want to watch a movie version of The Killing Joke, even though it's the most famous Batman print ever. So by saying it's something new, you get that unknown factor to pull people in, I guess. I don't recommend it. I don't think it would work. If I was writing for the MCU, I would need to consume like the entire history of that character.
Yeah, it's like do some at least research so that way you can have like, okay, this is the understanding of the character. You like maybe read like, let's say if I were to do a He-Man, I would go in like, okay, what are some like the He-Man, like the very original He-Man comics? What were some of the like the best episodes of the original He-Man uh TV show? What are the things that people like about He-Man and such? And then base my He-Man off of that. But then again, I'll
It's
probably
kind
put
of a
more
difficult
effort.
road to walk because even a beloved franchise like He-Man has issues.
Yeah.
And
But
the ideal writer is going to pull out the good stuff and improve the bad stuff. That's like the perfect outcome. Um, I think they have a skill issue in identifying what's the good stuff and what's the bad stuff. I think that summarizes a lot of Hollywood writing. Is it's a skill issue.
skill issue in too many cooks.
Yeah, I've ranted about that before. A decision by committee is the death of creativity.
Yeah, and this is something that I noticed like when it came to uh, the strike. One of the demands was more writers in the writing room. Like that was like one of the list of demands, and it's like, hold on, like it only takes like theoretically like one person to write a movie, maybe like two to bounce some ideas off of. You might have like okay 3 or 4 writers for a TV show. That way, you can have more of a constant stream of scripts that a TV show will need. But you don't need like 7 people to write one movie.
Certainly not for a movie. If you're doing something like The Office or something, or SNL, where you need or South Park,
Right.
where you need an episode every single week. Okay, I understand that you need a lot of writers to do that, even if you have like lead editorial directors and so on. Um, there's no need to release like that anymore. And most products are not on a weekly schedule, particularly because of Netflix popularizing binge watching, which I don't even know who wants binge watching anymore.
I don't know either.
Like that binge watching hit its peak because of Stranger Things, and you know what? I liked season 1 of Stranger Things. I think basically everyone liked season 1 of Stranger Things. I think for them it was almost a marketing stunt to just give the whole thing at once. But you would think that Netflix would have realized that people were subscribing for 1 month to their service because they had one show they wanted to watch and then unsubscribing. Whereas if they had a weekly output and you had to have your monthly subscription for 6 months of the year to get that one show, like you're not going to cancel your subscription. I think that's why one of the big reasons that manga is successful is the weekly releases. Yes, it's an obscene pace, but the weekly releases come in magazines where you get one chapter of One Piece and like 15 chapters of other things. And in order to get the super lead One Piece, you have to buy the other 15 manga. So you might as well try them. It should be the same way with subscription services where, all right, I'm willing to pay to watch Game of Thrones on HBO before it got ruined. And because I am paying the subscription price for the best, well, there's no delta cost for me to try all the other stuff, and maybe I'll fall in love with. Can you name another HBO show that was airing at the same time? Spartacus. Spartacus was like 6 years prior. What is HBO even releasing?
I know they're doing House of the Dragon, which that's just Game of Thrones. Oh. I think there was something like American Gods with Kevin Spacey. I know that's
I've never heard of these. I just went to HBO.com. What's new? What's leaving? Premieres. Hard Knocks off-season premiere. Never heard of it. Quad Gods premiere. Phantasmus season finale. Fae premiere. Wild West space premiere. The Commandant's Okay, the Commandant's Shadow. I feel like that's the wrong word. Charlie Hustle and The Matter of Pete Rose. I've never heard of any of those because they don't have a super lead pulling people in to talk about the other stuff they're subscribed to.
Yeah, I never heard of them. Granted, I don't pay much attention to TV anymore.
I missed Shogun, by the way. Did you watch Shogun? I had so many people tell me to make time to watch that.
No.
Wow, Rusty, you are one of the only people to say the adaptation was a disappointment. I've heard such good things about Shogun. All right. Anyways, we're wildly off topic because A Princess of Mars was, I want to say, 110 pages.
I mean, the copy I read was like 300 pages, but then again, that's probably like the printing, the spacing, and all that kind of stuff.
One of the reasons I struggled with this book is look at the margins on each page and the font size.
Yeah.
This was actually like physically difficult to read. Maybe it's because I'm by volume used to reading Japanese light novels where it's like double space size 12 font with 1-inch margins. Pages in an afternoon.
Yeah. Ant letters. Yeah, like I have some Bibles that have larger print.
I bought a real my copy of the Bible is really cheap. It's like on like I wouldn't even use it as cookie paper. It's so thin. It's like newspaper basically.
Oh, yeah, I have some that are like that thin.
Yeah, I got it for $1 though. I saw it on Amazon. I was just like, yeah, I'll have my own copy, sure, instead of the family copy. That's actually very high quality of it, but whatever. All right, we're wildly off topic, and we're at the 1 hour mark. I do recommend John Carter if you're looking to check it out. Although, as I said earlier, my recommendation is as an audiobook. I think this would do better with some dramatic voicing. For July, if you want to join the book club, dear viewer, we are reading The Longest Day by. I have it on Audible. That's why I know I'm 5 hours into it. Cornelius Ryan. I'm halfway through and really liking it. Because I've been playing The First Descendant like an absolute addict, I've had an audiobook plugged in for a lot of the time. That stream is going... Ooh. Actually, when is that stream going to be? It's going to be August 10th because I'll be at Gen Con August 3rd. So in about a month. Plenty of time to read a short book of very important history that is very well written. I'm a big supporter of reading actual military history, particularly if you're like me and you write military fiction. Aristides is correct. It is, well, I'm not sure I would say it's worse. I'm 25 hours into grinding it so far, and the grind is real. Like, the time it takes to get pulls to get the things that you're trying to get is pretty high, and you have pretty low chance of getting it. And I don't know. I'm going to still play it, but I don't think I'm going to play it on stream.
Rathalos plates grind.
I never did a Monster Hunter grind particularly hard. Although because I was a sadist, or not sadist, a masochist, I grinded the Pickles armor set because it was good, and I was struggling with the Elder Dragons. So I subjected myself to fighting the Pickle again and again and again. So anyways, if you want to support me as an author, you can buy my books, or you can read my web novel and leave a rating for free. I just ticked over 100 reviews on Undying Emperor. That's a big success right there. And Dino, you got anything to advertise as we wrap up here?
Just like the other times, nothing. Still in the works.
Grind that shit out, man.
I know. I just have like
All
a
right, thanks
lot
for
of
coming
stuff
on, though.
grinding.
And are you gonna read the longest day? Am I gonna see you in a month?
Probably. When
Right
I
on.
get my copy.
Chat, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for leaving a like. And I'm out of here. I'm gonna go paint.